Before we got on mics, you said this was going to be the worst episode ever. That piqued my attention. What are you going to do?
I think we should consider calling it the worst episode of this podcast.
Is it going to be the truth?
I think so. I think it will.
Then why are we doing this? We should try to make the best episode every time.
I think it's important. I think this topic is important. I mean, maybe we could just put what the topic is about right in the title, but I think that's too much. I think that's too much for people. So I want to talk to you about something, and I want to see what your thoughts are on it. Very painful for me, what we're about to talk about. So, let's start here. I think we need a warning. I don't think children should listen to this episode. I've never done that. I've never done a warning before an episode, but I don't think if you are a parent and you got small kids, I know a lot of people listen to this as families. I don't think kids should listen to this until parents have listened to it first and then judge that they think their kids are old enough to listen to this, because this is heavy. What we're about to talk about is heavy.
Okay. I'll quit screwing around.
Let me just tell you my thesis statement real quick, and I'm going to get to it in a very weird way, and this episode will probably go all over the place. But my thesis statement is this. I think people are jumping to euthanasia too quickly, and we should reconsider that. That's my thesis statement. So euthanasia is obviously a really, really big deal. Okay? So euthanasia, meaning the good death, is the idea that I'm getting towards the end of life and I feel like I'm going to experience a lot of pain. Therefore, I feel like I should end life on my own terms. That's the way the argument goes.
That is the most charitable way you could possibly frame that, and the most charitable scenario you could draft up for that.
I recently heard about a gentleman who won this big, I want to say it's the Nobel Prize or something along those lines. He's a very intelligent man. He recently ended his life. I think it was in Switzerland or somewhere like that. Anyway, this is a really, really big topic, and I don't think it's good. I think you should try to stay alive as long as possible. However, there's a weird case that I want to talk to you about, and I want to know what your thoughts are. So, have you ever had a dog die?
Yes.
Okay. This is why this is the worst episode ever. Because everybody thinks their dog is the best, and everybody is right. Their dog is actually...
My dog is not the best. Freya is a nightmare.
I thought your dog... I mean, everybody thinks their dog's the best. Freya's not...
Not mine. Mm-mm.
You don't like your dog?
She's a little turd.
Really?
No. Do you know how hard I work on my lawn?
Yeah.
And then she just is like, let me out. I have to go pee. I'm like, do you really have to pee? And she looks at me like, yeah. I'm like, no, I don't think that's what you have to do. She's like, I'll pee right here then. I'm like, fine, you can go outside, but make sure you only pee. And she runs out and just digs giant holes in the yard. Doesn't pee at all. Comes back in, pees on the floor, and gets mud everywhere from digging holes in my yard. No, she's not the best dog.
That's not great.
No, it's not great. I think about that a lot. Anyways, most people's dogs are the best dogs. Go ahead.
Do you want me to tell you whose dog was the best?
Who?
Mine. I had the best dog.
Wait. When you say the best dog...
Yeah.
Do you mean the best dog you had in childhood who was wonderful?
No.
Or do you mean Buckshot?
Buckshot is who I'm talking about.
You're using past tense.
I know.
Last time you and I talked about Buckshot, it was not... Is Buckshot gone?
Buckshot's gone. Yeah. Buckshot died.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, gosh.
I had
I'm sorry, man.
I know, right? I had a very, very difficult decision to make, and I want to talk to you about it.
When did this happen?
This happened last week. No.
Oh, dude.
No. It happened about 10 days ago. I haven't told you. So, long story short,
I'm sorry, man.
yeah, I know it's a big deal. So, Buckshot has been a part of our family for 17 years.
Longer than me.
Yeah, she's the best. She was the best girl. And so the thing about Buckshot is she always wanted to protect our family. That's all she wanted to do in the whole world. She just wanted to protect our family. And so she would, when Tara would go running, Tara would have the leash and she would run with Tara and she would protect Tara and she would come back and she would like always, work around the yard. She'd walk around the yard, make sure everything's good. She'd protect us. Everything was great. The kids, I've got videos of the kids hooking themselves to sleds and hooking themselves to Buckshot, and Buckshot would pull them around the yard. Buckshot was the actual best dog in the world. Tara's dog, Summer, who I affectionately name Princess Summer Booper
Princess Booper Snoot.
Yeah, Booper Snoot. Mm-hmm. Also the best dog. So in the last year, I have participated in the death of 2 dogs, which is why this is the worst episode ever. Do we agree now it's the worst episode?
This is the worst episode ever.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I did the death of these 2 dogs in 2 different ways. And I want to discuss that.
We're going to do this?
I think we need to do this, man, because I have noticed something. I think this is something people need to talk about. I think people need to talk about this because I literally Googled when Buckshot was... Okay, here's... you may just lay out both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when Summer, who was a golden retriever and absolutely the happiest dog in the whole world, great, she loves to play fetch, she loves to... just all the things. She's wonderful. Was so kind to my kids. We had a litter of puppies with her. She's great. The golden retriever, Summer, she just wasn't acting right one day. And Tara said, hey, something's wrong with Summer. And Summer and Tara, they had like a bond, like an incredible bond. They could read each other. When Tara was not feeling good or had a hard day, Summer would come jump in her lap. I've got pictures on pictures of me coming home late and Tara laying down and Summer just snuggled up next to her. It's great. Tara took Summer to the vet and the vet said, something's not right. And she's like, yeah, obviously that's why I'm here. She's like really tired and stuff. And the doc said, no, something's really not right. So we pulled her blood. You need to take her to Mississippi State. And Tara's like, pardon? Like Starkville, Mississippi State? And the doc said, yes, that is the best place in the Southeast for you to get this dog right now. And she said, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. She said, something's not right with her blood. You need to get her to Mississippi State right now. And Tara loves Summer like her own. If there was a fire and it was between me or Summer, it's questionable if I would make it.
It's not, but your point is well taken.
Okay. She took her to Mississippi State. Turns out she had some kind of blood cancer, blood disorder, blood something. I don't know. And it was clear she wasn't going to make it, which was awful because she was so full of life and she was a young pup, 2 years. Tara looks at me and says, can you go get Summer? This is like 3 days afterwards. Tara took her and then came back home. She said, can you go get Summer? This is like a 7-hour round trip.
Yeah.
I just looked at my wife and I tried to understand what that meant. What does that mean to you? Can you go get Summer?
You are very strong people. You are willing to talk about emotions, but if you have the option to speak plainly and practically, you will go that route and let things mean the things that they ought to mean, let the reader understand. That is her style and that is your style. And if Tara said something like that to you, I would take that to mean this is emotional torture and I need you to support me right now.
Yes. And so I said, of course. I love you. I love Summer. I will do that. So I went over to Mississippi State. I went into the room and they said, okay, you're here for Summer. I was like, yeah. And I'm like, this is surreal. Like I was throwing fetch with this dog 3-4 days ago. I don't understand what's going on. They bring her out with an oxygen mask on and she's happy and she's wagging her tail and she's got an oxygen mask on. And I said to the vet and the vet tech, I said, what's going on? And he said, her blood can't hold oxygen. So if we take this mask off of her, she will lose energy extremely fast, basically go hypoxic. Her blood is not working, and she's unable to make new blood. I don't know what it was. I got the name of it. It's not a genetic thing. It's something. It was a environmental thing. I don't know what it was. The doc says, yeah, so we've got some options here. So we can take the mask off. We can also give her something to calm her down. She's going to die.
Did he say when?
It's going to happen in the room that I'm in. Like, I'm going to pick up Summer and take her home and bury her. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, I was on the phone with you on that drive, but I didn't understand this. So he was saying that as soon as the mask comes off, the countdown starts, and it won't be a real long countdown.
Correct. Yeah. Minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, less than 30 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness. I understand the gravity of the situation. And I call the kids, and I call Tara. I was like, we need to FaceTime, and we need to get all the kids together, and we need to say goodbye to Summer. There's this really strong dad mode, super, super strong dad mode. So I'm in the strong dad mode, and I'm saying, hey, I don't even remember what I said, something about say goodbye to the dog. And we do that, and everybody's crying. I can't imagine what it was like to be on the other end, be at home. I'm there with this vet, who was great, by the way, absolutely fantastic. I had no concept, much like when you and I met, I thought, oh, you're a pastor. That must be interesting. I had no concept of your job, right? You taught me a lot about the job of being a pastor. That's not an easy job. You still feel that way?
I still feel that way, yeah.
What do you think about the job of being a vet?
I think much like being a pastor, you are there and you are in the room for a whole lot of moments people will never forget. Good ones, bad ones, and that's one of the most sneakily underappreciated aspects of the job of pastor. You are there so much for days people will remember forever, and then you have to gear up and turn around and do it again an hour later and an hour after that. And so for that vet, my mind went straight to them when you're saying everybody's crying. My question that I didn't muster was, well, was the vet? Because what's that like? How can you muster that every single time a family goes through that? It changes a person, maybe not in the bad ways, but being a pastor changed me. It changes people who do it and mean it, because it's just something that you carry with you. You feel things for other people that aren't really yours to feel, but you still do. It's hard to know how to process that. It's kind of easier to work through your own stuff than feeling things vicariously through other people. So yeah, my brain went straight to the vet. How did they do?
Fantastic. The vet did great. The vet understood the situation I was in. What I settled on is, after the kids said goodbye, we were going to take the mask off, and I was just going to sit there with her, and I was going to scratch her ears. That's what I was going to do. I was going to scratch her ears. We're just going to sit there and scratch her ears for a while, and then they were going to give her a little bit of, with an injection, a little bit of morphine or something to calm her down, or maybe I decided to go with the sodium pentothal or whatever it is that stops the heart. I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking, I don't want her to feel pain. And man, I wish I could look up and figure out what I did. I remember feeling conflicted, like, oh man, this is a thing I have to decide. I don't want to decide this. You know what I mean? Because it feels a little bit like playing God. I'm looking up the thing, Mississippi State. I'm trying to find if we actually got, okay. This vet, his name was Wes. We'll leave it at that. He did fantastic. And I had questions. I was like, hey, here's the deal, man. This is a dog that we just had a lot of puppies, and a lot of people took those puppies, and they're going to be wondering if their dog's going to have the same issue. And I said, are they? And he said, no. And he wrote a letter for me to give it to the people who took Summer's puppies. And just the first sentence here, to those it may concern. He wrote this on letterhead, signed by Mississippi State College of Veterinary Medicine at the bottom. To whom it may concern, recently, Princess Summer Boopersnoot was a patient here at Mississippi State College of Veterinary Medicine Animal Health under the care of myself, and names. and he explained everything. It was determined she had a very rare form of cancer. He explained everything about it. And then he says, to those who are blessed to have one of Summer's puppies, we understand the concern of your own. We have the data that shows blah, blah, blah. And he basically says, this is not going to pass on. But just the fact that he wrote a letter that says, recently, Princess Summer Boopersnoot was a patient here. He wrote that down. I thought that was amazing. So anyway, I believe we euthanized Summer, if I recall, to make it fast. So we did that. I laid there in the floor because she was on the ground. I laid there and I scruffed her ears and I cried. I just laid there and cried. I was trying to be strong because this is one of the worst moments of my life. It's not the worst moment. It's one of them. So I prayed with my family over FaceTime. We said, thank you for Summer, basically. Got off the call and then we removed the masks. And I believe we did do euthanasia. I don't remember exactly, but I think we did. If, at a minimum, there was some kind of morphine to ease it, right? And then I cried. And then I looked up at the guys, and I was trying not to cry, but I looked up at the guys, and I said, that right there, that was a good dog. It was hard. So, took her back. I buried her where we bury our dogs. Fast forward a year later. Buckshot's getting old. It's a joke. It's been a joke for a long time amongst all my kids' friends that when they come over, that when you come in the driveway, you have to go very, very, very slow because there's a blind, deaf dog. Mm-hmm. And we know she's about to go out, but you don't want to be the person to hit her because, you know, my dad might kill you because he loves this dog so much. So that's the joke. So anyway, she quit walking and then she laid down. And then over the course of 3 days, she couldn't move. She was just sitting there. And so the question was, okay, we know she's about to die. And so my question to you, Matt, if you're in this situation, what do you do? She's not in pain. She is clearly going to die. You got 3 days-ish guessing with this dog. What do you do?
At that age, with the dog whose behavior you know very well, and the dog can't move, which is a very important function for a dog. If they've lost all mobility, there's ways to augment that with a person. With a dog, it's over. Then you put a dog down, and in the culture I'm from, you do that somewhere safe and far away from people, and you do it with a bullet.
Okay. I've done that before. I had a 3-legged dog one day that was clearly dying, and I put the dog down actually right here.
And it sounds cruel, and I need you to kind of make me look a little better here. For people who don't understand.
Yeah.
For people who haven't worked around animals, for people who don't understand what I'm talking about, it just sounds horrible.
It's the quickest, fastest way to do it. Yeah.
Yes. I've seen it done, and I've put animals down this way. I mean, you put the warning out. So I'm assuming there aren't kids here right now.
Yeah.
And if there are kids here, this is signed off on. I had people from the generation before me show me how to do this because the objective is mercy. I mean, this is something that I learned from the generation before me, from people I trust, saying, when you are sure you are at the end of life or there's tremendous suffering going on with an animal that maybe you hit while you're out driving at night, or even with a beloved household pet or livestock, this is where you want to position the shot. This is how you want to take the shot, and they will feel nothing.
Yeah.
And so I've seen it done, and I've done it myself, and it sounds so morbid and so bad. It is meant to be a gesture of mercy.
So I called people. So when Buckshot was, it was very clear. Her legs she's been having a hard time with the legs for a while. And so the first thing I did is I asked Tara, I was like, can you please go buy steak? Can you just go buy a bunch of steak? And I'm going to cook steak for Buckshot. She likes that. She's had it once or twice. That's all she's going to eat right now is, she's got the little sirloin steaks, so I'm frying them up. Mm-hmm. And so I come home late one night. It's like 11:30 at night, and I walk out on the front porch, and she had pooped herself laying there right on the front porch, and I get that cleaned up, get her positioned, move her legs to where, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to make you some steak. So I went and made the steak, took it out there and given her steak. She's like, oh, this is interesting. This is great. And so she ate the steak. We did that for a day or so, and then she wasn't interested in the steak anymore. And she's on the front porch. And Tara said, I cannot watch my girl suffer like this. I was like, well, that's the thing. She's not actually suffering. And I could not bring myself to do this. I couldn't bring myself to raise my hand against the most loyal animal I've ever had. I couldn't do it.
That language.
What? Yeah. And so I'm working through that with my children. I'd walk around the house and I'd be like, where's so-and-so? Oh, they're outside. They're just in the front yard petting her and crying. And I'm like, man. So I was conflicted for the first time in my life. I've normally never hesitated to do this, to go to the vet and euthanize the dog, or to do as you described. If it's a lot of pain situation and we got to do something quickly, 22 caliber long rifle does the job very quickly. You got to do it in a very safe way, all this sort of thing. However, in this case, I was like, she's happy. All she wants is to be with me. I can't do that. I'm going to let it take its course. And so that's what I did. And it was really, really interesting because with Summer, is a kind of a different situation because, take the mask off, like we were artificially keeping her there and they kept her there till I could get to her. But in this situation, she's just laying there and she's happy. How I ended up doing this is, Tara made a comment. She's like, it breaks my heart to see her like this. And I said, okay, that's enough. And so I got her and I put her in the back of the truck and I took her to her favorite tree. And this is a tree when years ago, when she was a young pup, there's a dog in Mississippi that could tree a squirrel. And the old man, John, would say, Tiger was the name of his dog. He'd say, Tiger, go tree me a squirrel. And that dog would run off and tree a squirrel. And it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I want my dog to do that. So I taught Buckshot how to do that. And so treeing a squirrel, she'll run up, she'll find a squirrel, run it up a tree, and then she'll bark at the base of the tree. Well, this is the oak tree that the squirrels always ran to. And so I had her on the tailgate. I drove her under the oak tree, and we just sat there. I just sat there, and I scruffed her ears, and I scratched her ears, and I just told her how good she was. She's a great dog. But here's the thing. Let me show you a picture. I'm going to text you a picture. Sorry to do this to you. But I'm going to text you a picture of Buckshot less than 10 minutes before she died. And you tell me what this dog looks like. Sorry to do this to you. Worst episode ever. Look at this picture.
I'm not having fun, buddy.
Sorry.
Oh, Pop.
What does that look like to you?
Oh.
Just describe the picture.
It looks like extreme old age in a dog who has had a very full life.
Yeah.
It looks like her eyes are having a tough time. You can see that she has muscle memory of how to look at someone who she trusts. But you can just tell by the cataracts and the look of the eyes that she can't see anything. Her musculature is gone. The way her limbs are relaxed. When Maya, who is the best dog ever, Freya, she's struggling. Maya, who is the best dog ever, when she lays down, you can still tell that she's strong. She's trying to relax, but her musculature, holds her legs in a certain way. This dog has no strength. Buckshot's worn out. And the other thing I see is despite the fact that she can barely hear you in this shot and can't see you, she can feel you and she loves you.
She's happy, right?
She's happy.
Yeah, isn't that weird that she's happy? She just looked like that the whole dang time, man. And so she was happy, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to kill Buckshot. I can't. If you're going to look at me like that, there's no way I can raise my hand against my dog. it was the first time in my life I felt that. I was very, very conflicted. I was like, what you do is when your dog gets old and your dog can't do anything more, you just put your dog down. That's just what you do. And this whole experience made me think that maybe we jumped to that too quickly. I don't know. I mean, maybe Freya, I don't know, if Freya barked a little too much, maybe you could put her down tomorrow or something.
No, I talk a tough game. My heart is so soft for that little baby husky that no, I love her. She's frustrating, and I'm going to be patient with her, and we're going to get her at some point probably to be a good dog or find her a nice farm to live on, but probably be our good girl.
So I'll tell you how Buckshot died. We sat there, and I scruffed her ears just like this, just right like you see right here. And we're under her favorite tree, and we sat there. We had a connection, so I could tell you exactly what she was thinking. Sarcasm there. Sitting there scruffing her ears, and then she is breathing real hard, like that. And then she kind of stops, and then she looks up at the tree, and I imagine that she finally saw that squirrel that I've been telling her to tree for many, many years. So she sees something in the tree, or at least acts like she sees something in the tree. And then she starts trying to run really fast, like her young Buckshot days. She starts trying to run her legs, run. And then she lets out one big, ow! And then she died. And that was the moment I finally had my emotional release, because I was playing, what I realized is I was playing this tough guy game the whole time for the family and for all the things, for Buckshot and all the stuff. And then finally I got to cry, and I cried so hard. I knew I was going to cry when Buckshot died, but I finally cried so hard, heaving, sobbing on the tailgate. And I imagined, I was like, I've got neighbors. What on earth are they thinking right now? But I had gone earlier to the thrift store, and Miss Debbie was there, who I know. And I said, Miss Debbie, I got a dog that's dying. I need a nice cotton blanket. And so we start looking through all the blankets at the thrift store, and she said, is it a girl? I said, yeah. She said, well, here's a nice pink one that's cotton. It's got rabbits on it. I was like, that's a great one. And so I had that laid down on the ground, and when Buckshot died, and I got done crying, which was awesome, by the way, laid her down, wrapped her up, and I was like, all right. And I called my dad, and then we have a place where we bury our dogs. It's just like all the dogs are buried there. And I took the dog, and this time I took a tractor with an auger on it, and I augered a hole in the ground and then used a shovel to go around it, and I buried Buckshot right there. My dad and my brother helped me. Very kind of them. They knew I was hurting. And that's how I buried Buckshot. But my question is, and this is the question I want to wrestle with, all the emotion aside, I want to wrestle with this question of rushing to put our dogs down versus, when is it right? When is it wrong? Can you imagine how hard it would be to be a vet? It's just something that this experience made me think about, because she wasn't in pain, but everything in the world was telling me to put her down. But I had a really, really nice last few moments with her that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Maybe I would have. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That story was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your description of what she did physically and how she acted in those last moments, that was a lot.
She saw the squirrel, I'm pretty sure.
Saw the squirrel. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. When families are dealing with things, and you talk with the family about stuff, whether it's a difficult time, a difficult season, an impending loss, a tragic loss that has just happened, and now you're doing services, family stuff, whatever. There's always a thing that I'm trying to think of for the family, and that is, what do they need this to be? What needs to happen for who they are and what their story is, the history of their family, the insecurities that they drag around as individuals and as a family, whatever it might be. There's a whole bunch of factors that put us in the spots that we're in. I would try to think about that. What do they need? What does this need to be for the story to make sense? For there to be one more blessing from this situation that they get out of an otherwise very difficult thing. There's always at least one more gift to be given by a person or dog who we love when we lose them, because it's a card you can't play very often, losing somebody and contending with that. So when I put together a funeral service, I would think really hard. I mean, you got stuff that you just need to do. You got to talk about life and death and memories.
For a dog?
No, for a person.
Okay.
I've never done a dog funeral. But when you put together a service, there's obvious stuff that you do, but there's touches. There's less obvious stuff that you do that you're doing to try to make sure this is what this particular family, this individual, whatever, needs out of the service, out of the situation. And I think you got what you needed out of this. I think it's a grace that you got to experience the loss of your best dog ever the way you did. I mean, you just do the math on it. How many hours a night do you sleep? Well, let's say your average, 7.5. And let's say that you're in bed getting ready, whatever, for another 1.5 total on either side. Well, it's 9 hours in the night. That's a time when a dog would be likely to pass with no attention, kind of wait till things are quiet. I mean, there's a real good chance that you wouldn't even be present when your dog passed most of the time, but you just happened to be. I mean, you were there, you were attentive the whole time, and you got to walk your puppy all the way to the finish line. And as a result, the story has beautiful symmetry. The tree, teaching your dog about that stuff, the things that your dog teaches you, because that's how that relationship works. It's perfect. Not everybody gets an ending like that. The timing doesn't work out. The ailment, the circumstances aren't as graceful, aren't as elegant and gentle as the circumstances of her passing. I mean, how...
That's a good description. It felt abnormally gentle, abnormally, and I think that was a grace. That was for I think God did that for me, but it certainly felt like grace and mercy.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a grace and a mercy when Brosnan, my dog named after the actor who played Remington Steele in James Bond, got blasted by a pickup truck when we lived in the house in the country, and I just had to go recover his body, but we were so poor we didn't have anything and we couldn't pay for anything. So I just had to pick him up because he was a big dog and grab him under his arms and carry him in the rain.
Was he dead?
He was dead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found him. Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, absolute core imprint memory for me.
Oh, yeah.
Still to this day, I feel everything about the day I lost Brosnan. I don't know. I don't know why the grace of a dignified, gentle death wasn't extended to Brosnan. I don't know why things work the way they work.
I had another dog that had something. I think I've talked about that on here maybe.
In the episode where we talk about Does the Dog Die?
Yeah.
We swapped the stories that existed at that point.
Horrible stories.
Between us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're horrible stories. But if you decide to let somebody into your life, they're going to lose you or you're going to lose them. It's what you're signing up for. The alternative is don't let anyone into your life. The alternative is don't share the journey of life with anyone. Don't be tender and open. Some people just say it's not worth it. They don't want to go through what you just went through. So they don't let a pet or anyone into their lives. I guess that's one way to play it. You love things. You love people. So you're going to hurt. I do too. So I'm going to hurt. And if anything, I'm grateful that the hurt in my life has been so minimized to this point with, one glaring obvious exception.
Yeah, your brother. I don't know. It makes me think about how precious life is. And as I was talking to people about Buckshot, everybody was so very kind. I searched on the internet. I Googled, what are the best things to do at end of life for a dog? And I found a couple of threads, and everybody was just telling the person, oh yeah, just go take him to the vet and euthanize him immediately. First time anything happens. And I understand why that was said, and I'm just questioning it because I don't know if I did it right the first time. Like I said, I had a very good experience that I think is the exception, not the rule, the second time.
I think it's very much the exception, not the rule.
Absolutely.
The last animal I put down
Was in pain?
Yeah, even though we have a disclaimer on this episode, I'm not going to describe what the animal looked like, but it was an absolute mess, and I absolutely did the right thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Proud of you. That's hard to do.
This wasn't like that.
No.
Yeah, and that's also really hard to do. There's a whole technique because you have to plug one ear with your shoulder.
You do. Yep.
You plug your shooting ear with the shoulder.
You do.
You're not shooting arm ear with your pointer finger on the other hand, and it's not great for accuracy.
It's not.
So you got to be really, really, really careful and thoughtful, and it's emotional, so it'd be easy to make a mistake. It's a bigger deal than you figure. I sounded pretty callous when I was talking about that earlier. I don't mean to exude that because of what you said. Life is precious. I wanted to ask you, why did you say that? Why is life precious?
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's taken me. It's taken me to that because it's a very, very rare, exceptional thing, no matter how you look at it. If you just look at the geometric volume of the universe and think about where life is, it's in a very tiny location, and there's not a lot of it. And if you think about the vastness of time, and you think about the length of the timeline, no matter what you believe, it's very, very big. Big might not even be the word. Infinite might be the word. It is the word, probably. The amount of time that life exists on that, my life exists on that, or Buckshot's life, or whatever, the amount of time that life exists is so small that it's like every second matters a lot, which is why scrolling on the dang phone is so dumb, but we all fall victim to it. We gotta win that back. I think we're starting to win that back. So I think life is precious because of how rare it is. It's just very, very special. You have the ability to make decisions. You have the ability to compute things and make choices, and it's just, I don't know. It seems self-evident that it's precious.
I don't know how to do the math on this, but if you're talking about the incredibly unlikely confluence of events that would cause particles, matter, energy to come together to make a sentient being with feelings and a body and emotions and dreams and imagination and memories, then you multiply that out by the unlikelihood in the grandeur of time and space, this 3-coordinate system, that would in any way, let alone meaningfully, intersect with you. That's insane. It's insane that you and I are friends.
Yeah, it is.
That you shouldn't exist, I shouldn't exist, let alone both of us exist, let alone meet each other, let alone decide through events and volition, we will be friends and I will tell you true things. That shouldn't happen. And if you reran the universe 1 billion times, that's going to happen 0 more of those times.
Yeah.
Yep.
It really makes me think about people writing laws so that people can choose how they die, which I understand that. This is a very, very deep topic. It goes to all kinds of things. You can call it euthanasia. You can call it suicide. You can call it all these things. I guess my point is...
Well, it is suicide.
It is suicide, yes. It is suicide, no matter who pushes the button. But I think it's important to stay in the fight, and I think it's important to fight for life. I think it is. I think it's important to... Just because it gets hard or difficult, I don't think you should be like, okay, we're going to have a party, and everybody's going to come over, and maybe we spend a few days in Paris before we go to Switzerland or whatever it is they're doing. I don't know.
Well,
I just know it's getting weird.
now, you withheld Buckshot dying from me for 10 days.
Yeah, I did.
In the service of this conversation and in the service of sharing this with the third chair.
I did.
I like your dog.
Yeah.
And it's... there's that episode of The Office where Ed Truck dies. He was the old manager of The Office before Michael Scott took over. And then I think in that episode, a bird, like a swallow or something, dies. And Michael Scott wants to do a funeral for it. And at first, everybody's really irritated with him because he wants to do a funeral for a swallow. And who cares about a stupid swallow? And then gradually, the people who are most emotionally tuned in The Office figure out he's grieving bigger things. He's working through bigger things because Ed Truck died, and Ed Truck used to have his position in his office. And so the swallow and Ed Truck are confluencing to make him think about mortality and the point of it all. And does anybody really love me? And so there's some tenderness to the end of the episode. It's really nicely done. So in the early going of this conversation, I'm feeling a little bit ick for being so callous about what you do when an animal is at the end.
I think it's right.
So I just want a disclaimer that I'm feeling conflicted about my earlier remarks, and I'm not sure they're going to play super well when I listen to Tina's edit of this podcast.
No, I mean, I think there is without a doubt, a time like, okay, so I had a dog named Cody. I think it was named Cody. It wasn't my dog, but it was a 3-legged dog. Got it from the pound or something. I don't remember exactly how I had this dog, but I had this dog for like 4 days, and I've always wanted a 3-legged dog. It's the dumbest thing in the world. It's a very selfish thing for me, but I had a 3-legged dog, and then instantly, just unbelievable pain. This dog started dying. It was very, very clear. This is not just a dog yelping. This dog is dying. I believe I got a vet involved. I don't remember that. But long story short, however it ended up happening, I ended up having to shoot the dog. Like Old Yeller style. Bad. Not cool at all. It's a thing, man. It's a hard thing. My other dog that I told you about that I ended up running over years ago, we were at the vet, and she was clearly in pain. She actually still has scars from where she bit me from in the moment. And so we put her down very quickly. No, I don't think you need to second guess your comments. I think sometimes as men, we need to step up and do those things. And it's important for us to be like, I need to shield all of my family from all of this right now. And I need to take this dog, and we need to go somewhere else. And I'm sure that's happened many, many times in our lives that we weren't aware of because we were too young.
Of course. And also, as a man, even though you needed to be there alone with your dog, it just makes me sad to picture you there alone with your dog while your dog died. Your dog who you love.
Oh, George came over and hugged me. It was good. George,
good job, George.
Yeah, George drove by and hugged me. Yeah, some of the best hugs I've ever received is after dogs died.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
The point is, Ed Truck, The Office, The Sparrow, Buckshot, Brosnan.
Yeah.
All of this is practice for facing the beyond. All of this is us running the math and thinking about what makes us us and what makes life special and what makes grief so sad and how all of it works together. I mean, what we were talking about a while back. I mean, the point of honor's philosophy is to prepare the student for death. That's what we're doing in this conversation. You were showing, I mean, what's the point of a funeral? It's to imagine, in part, it's to say goodbye, but a big part of a funeral is to allow ourselves to imagine that when we're gone, people will be sad too, that it mattered, that it meant something. If you dishonor the dead, you dishonor yourself. If you dishonor the dead, you dishonor the very notion of life. It's not something to be flippant about. It's why every society takes the desecration of a grave seriously and should. What's to keep people from dishonoring us? What it does is it undermines the entire idea that this matters and that you mattered. And yeah, it's clumsy and fumbling, and funerary rites are not enough in and of themselves to solve the grand conundrum of our quick, fleeting lives and loss and grief, but there's something there intrinsically in the heart of man that says, this matters. We are more than the other physical things we see in the world around us. Even if it's not perfect, we're going to do something to try to pause and reflect on that and honor the reality that this person, even this cherished pet that is gone, mattered, still matters, and that somehow in remembering that, we remember that all of this matters. So your head is supposed to go there. I think you should feel grossed out by what's happening with assisted suicide. I do as well. Where I disagree with you is, like, look, if you want people not to get together and have these parties, then people need to quit doing the hardcore masculine, nothing matters thing, I'm fine, I don't cry bullcrap, and do things while we're still alive to honor other people. Don't make birthdays, like decade birthdays, into some kind of joke about your impending death and mock people for aging. I've hated that since I was a little kid, and I still hate it. There should be times where we celebrate people while they're still alive. Not like there's some kind of legend, but just I celebrate that you exist and that we're friends. That should be built into the rhythm of things way more. If there's an impulse that people feel to do this in their I'm getting in the suicide pod tomorrow party at the end of life, well, what an ick way to express it. Like, let's scratch that itch some other way and celebrate it more. So that's the only impulse about that I appreciate, is it's a reminder that we should do that before things are bad. We should appreciate each other more before things are bad.
Yeah, well said. I'd like you to read the title of the article I just sent you, please.
All right.
Dated 12 December 2024.
Okay. Oh, no. I challenged you on this earlier, and you said you just know, and now I know why. The title is Assisted Dying Now Accounts for 1 in 20 Deaths in a Country Where This Is Legal.
That's too many.
Yeah, the article's dated to 24, but the study is dated to more than 2 years ago, 2 years before you and I are recording this.
Yeah. I think that's too many. I think it's possible. And so this is the connection that I'm making here. It's a loose connection because people are not dogs and dogs are not people. The death of a human is very different than the death of a dog, I believe. My personal belief is that people have souls. Don't think dogs have souls, but
maybe something like it. Maybe some version of one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they kind of inherit the soul of the people who love them.
Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is I think it's becoming fashionable, and I think it's wrong. So I just wanted to draw that connection.
Well, okay, I agree with you. Just quickly, the average age was 77. The vast majority, around 96%, had a death deemed reasonably foreseeable, unquote, due to severe medical conditions such as cancer. Boy, reasonably foreseeable isn't strong enough language for me to justify that action. And then it talks about a, quote, small minority of other cases where, man, those are darker, that rationale.
I think I should be clear here. So I've been in the room when people have died. You're familiar with the term palliative care?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of life when someone's in pain and there are measures taken to make sure the person is not in pain.
Yes.
I've been in the room when that happens.
I know.
And I have seen situations where people are giving pain meds to ease their passing. I've seen that. It's a horrible event. Also, that's very, very different from having a party.
The situation you're talking about in that particular country is very different from the people I've loved who, depending on your definition of alive, could be sustained without any function with medical intervention, with robots and electricity that could make their body do things that it could no longer involuntarily do to simulate aliveness. And then I've watched and had to counsel families through the process of how they would respond. to that impossible situation.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that here either.
I don't know the answers. A couple of things in this article here. A report released in October has since shed some lights on controversial cases where people were granted assisted dying when they were not nearing their natural death.
Look at the way the dystopian language tries to clean up the ugliness of it. It's
gross.
Assisted dying.
Yes, exactly.
There's always a euphemism to go with these horrors.
One example it's almost Orwellian language. It's messed up. One example included a woman in her 50s with a history of depression and suicidal thoughts who had a severe sensitivity to chemicals. Her request for euthanasia was granted after she failed to secure housing that could have met her medical needs. That is the most jacked up, twisted. Everything about this is wrong.
I'm familiar with the story you're referencing right there. This isn't the direction the conversation needs to go. There are people listening who feel very differently and very strongly from what I think. I'm not a fan of anything at all politically right now, so I'm just not interested in lighting that match in any way. I don't like anything. All your politics are stupid, and I don't like any of it. I mean, what you're talking about there, though, is a giant state apparatus where the tendrils of central planning are in every aspect of this decision about life, from where you live to what care you get to what subsidies you're eligible for to deal with this chemical issue, which is what my grandpa died of, by the way. This isn't unfamiliar to me. My grandpa got plumbism from being a marksmanship instructor on the Air Force Base I'm sitting just a few miles from in Rapid City, South Dakota. The VA didn't treat it, it was just one of those horror stories that you get where you hear about the VA hospitals not doing a good job and being negligent in their duties. Grandpa served his country for a real long time, and then he was just sort of tossed out, and that was it. So the rest of his life was spent protecting himself from ever smelling anything, because if he smelled anything, he would, because of his lead exposure, he would spiral into this horrible health funk it's very real for a very long period of time. And gradually he just had to withdraw from society because he couldn't smell anything that was chemical, like even perfume or deodorant. Like if he smelled anything, his body would react in a certain way that just took years off of his life. Oh, now we know that is a thing. Back then we didn't. So you're just out of luck, Grandpa. Okay. I mean, that's kind of a near and dear example to my heart of somebody I care about being involved in the apparatus of the state, having the state and the bureaucrats that made decisions make the wrong decisions, not know how to handle it. It ended up affecting how long he lived, how long we had him. There's just a much bigger question here than just should people do this or not. The more central planners and bureaucracies handle these kinds of life decisions and have to manage resources that the state has at its disposal, the more we're going to get nudged toward these kinds of conversations. My point is, it's not entirely a social conversation. There is a political element to this whereby, well, if we're going to do this, then we really need oversight and regulation of this, and that affects this aspect of your life. And if we're going to do that, well, how far do we really go with somebody if they're facing this particular thing? Eventually, policies will get drawn for all of this, and it will get increasingly dystopian. And maybe there'll be no Snidely Whiplash bad guy who made it all happen, but it will become an institutional evil with nobody to point a finger at, and then it's just a thing that occurs. And given what you said about the preciousness of life, I don't feel great about that trajectory.
I don't either. It reminds me of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. That's the vibe I get, where you start to reduce people down to, what they are genetically or economically, and you start thinking about how they contribute to society. That's the next question. That's where this is going next. Dude, 1 in 20 people. I don't think this is a good path.
Not 1 in 20 people, 1 in 20 deaths, to be clear.
Forgive me. Thank you. Yes, 1 in 20 deaths. So 1 in 20 people that died during that time. And I think it was a little under 1 in 20 to be fair.
A little over that now, most likely.
Probably.
Okay, in light of all of that then, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience with how things work, with culture and laws and stuff like this, do you anticipate the restrictions and the standards in this particular country that we're talking about, or any of these countries that do this practice, do you anticipate those standards getting more rigorous or less rigorous over time?
Now, that's a really interesting question, because typically I would say the slippery slope thing is going to happen, right? Like, you're going to start a little bit, and then it's just going to, they're going to open the floodgates. But something kind of weird happened in this particular country, in this case. It seems like they've paused because, like, things are happening so fast, they don't understand what's happening. And I can't tell if they're pausing to adjust the standards or if they're pausing because they think they've overstepped. It's unclear to me, but I agree with you. I think typically there's it's usually, hey, now that we've started this little path towards death, let's just open it up so anybody can. Let's look at this thing here. So let me just show you my screen. Introduces legislation to delay medical assistance in dying expansion by 3 years. I don't know what that means.
Okay, so here's how I read that. The standards were set to move in the direction I was intoning, toward being more lax, and they did we got to hit pause on this until we figure out what the heck is going on thing. We're not expanding or contracting, but we need to talk about this. That's how I read that.
It says mental illness can cause the same level of suffering as that of physical illnesses. Under current law, people suffering solely from mental illness who meet all the eligibility criteria, I don't like that they frame it as a positive. Are you eligible for this?
That's
hate
appalling.
It is. The eligibility
dystopian language
and safeguards who have been eligible for this as of this date. Important progress has been made to prepare eligibility for persons whose sole medical condition is mental illness. So maybe it's getting worse. I don't know. It's very difficult.
I think it's getting worse. And I'm picturing, I've had a couple of conversations with friends in a particular country in Europe. And dude, I think we're both doing the same thing here, which is we're from one country. We're from this country. So we're trying not to just barf ignorance onto the internet about how the things are in everybody else's country. And one way that we can keep from getting that maybe wrong or overstepping is just by not particularly hounding any particular country or any specific policy in one country.
Oh, so yeah, man. Like
if it's okay with you, I'll just say a country.
Absolutely. Like, what's that verse in the Bible? You're worried about the speck in somebody's eye, but you have a plank in your own eye. America has planks in our eyes. So
I'm glad you pluralized that.
Yeah, we have many planks.
It is plural. I love my country, man. There's cool things about here, but
yeah, dude.
Well, I mean,
people know
there are things. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was talking with some people I know in a particular country in Europe, and to listen to them sound the alarm about attitudes toward euthanasia there was really troubling for me. And then I see this story that came down the pike here in the last few months or whatever about a woman in her late 20s, 27, 29 years old, who, again, she was very sad, clinical depression. I mean, you could put whatever term on it she put on it or that would be put on it, but she felt like she didn't have many prospects for her future, but was otherwise perfectly healthy. And she was declared eligible for assisted suicide, had a party, got into a pod, and took her own life in her 20s. Are you kidding me?
I mean, you're so young and beautiful, and
and she was lovely.
That's horrible. That's horrible. I just wanted to kind of sound the alarm a little bit and say, I don't think this is good. I think this is bad. And my own experience with my dogs, I know it sounds so callous to say it this way, Whitman, but my own experience and the desire to, like, I'm going to kind of fast forward the natural process here with my dog, I was like, I can't. Her life is precious. I can't do that. And it ended up being a wonderful, wonderful thing that I did not do that.
And of course, that in and of itself, I understand.
Yeah, the
That
logic
in and
doesn't,
of itself
yeah.
doesn't play out to the level of policy, or maybe even totally to the level of even just advice. But it certainly plays out to the level of, here's a thing that happened and it gives you pause.
Yes.
People are going to have different things that happen in their lives that give them those moments of pause about the stuff about which we become callous, about the things that make us forget basic values like love and forgiveness and joy and optimism and valuing the people in our lives and the brevity of life and the preciousness of life. These little things, and sometimes big things, that come down the pike that happen in our lives that remind us of that. And you just went through a huge one of those that grabbed you by the shoulders and shook you on these questions. And I think your conclusions are right. There's a whole other path we could go down in this conversation. We're not going to, and I don't want to, even if you did want to, but of course there'll be people in the comments somewhere who are like, well, people are just going to do this on their own then. Like, I don't really want to engage with that, but I don't have any say in that. That's tragic and horrible too, in a different way. But there's something corrupting to the soul of civil society for us to say people are going to do bad, destructive things anyway. So let's try to help them and make it cleaner.
Yeah. I want to be very clear. I'm not coming down and saying it has, like, it's all or nothing. I think there's some room for palliative care and things of that nature. But I think the pendulum has swung way too far in the wrong direction. Way, way too far. And I just think it's important to be on record for that. So
I'm against the death penalty. I'm against abortion. I'm against euthanasia. I'm against suicide. I think life's precious, and I think everybody's real comfortable sitting in their armchairs saying, throwing out theories, stupid, like it's a comment section on the internet talking about people living and dying. And I know there are people who agree with me on these views who get there in a different way than I get there. But simply put, I think people are made in the image of God. I think people have intrinsic value because of people who made us. I think that's the starting point for a sustainable ethic of life and the value of people in general. I think racism is wrong, not because enough people voted to say it's bad. It's wrong because people are made in the image of God. I think murder is wrong, not because we voted and said you shouldn't kill people. I think it's wrong because people are made in the image of God and you're taking something of great value. So for me, at least, this isn't just, an underlying opinion that, I just find these things off-putting or gross. I don't have the stomach for people getting hurt. I don't think it's just a cosmic confluence that causes people to exist like we were talking about earlier. I think people are valuable because people are made by God. I know that's going to be weird for some people to hear, but that's how I get there, and that's part of why I feel really strongly about this.
But I think you can get there without believing in God as well. I think you can recognize
I agree.
The sanctity of life and how different and interesting and awesome it is. And so I don't even think you have to be a person of any religious background to see how important human life is. I think it's fascinating. And so I remember the first time I had a real encounter with death. Have I talked about that with you? Have I
tell me the story. I don't know.
My dad's uncle was dying, Uncle Dawson. I remember we went over, and end of life is very challenging for 1,000 reasons. I was probably about 14 years old, and one thing my dad is really, really good at, exceptional, is caring for people at the end of their life. I don't know why. He's just fantastic at it. We walked in the house, and there were people being busy and moving around and taking casseroles places to support the family, and all this kind of stuff was happening. And there were people sitting in chairs in the den there where they had the deathbed set up, and Uncle Dawson was there. And I walked in, and I had never seen a gaunt face like that was clearly towards the end. And I noticed nobody was talking to him, and my dad walked in, And he walked immediately to Uncle Dawson, and he grabbed his hand, and he started rubbing the back of his hand. And he started talking to him in a way that provided dignity and respect. And they started talking about jokes, and he started saying stuff, and Uncle Dawson couldn't respond. But he said things like, he told him stories. Like, there's this really interesting story about the time Uncle Dawson and Uncle Jimmy got into a cotton picking match. And back in the day, they would drag their cotton sacks, and they would pick cotton, and they were going to see who could pick the most cotton in the day. Halfway through the day, I forget who it was, either Uncle Dawson or Uncle Jimmy won, they said, "Hey, look at that airplane." And the other guy looked up at the airplane, and they said he never caught back up. He said he lost the cotton picking match because he paused for that 3 seconds to look at the airplane.
That's a Sandlin trick. I've seen you use that on me.
So that's a joke that he told in that moment, and I remember. I don't remember if he told that story. That's just a famous story in our family. But I remember him saying things like that in the moment to Uncle Dawson.
Yeah,
and I remember seeing a response to the stories. Like not laughter, but like there's a little muscle on the face that moved in a positive way. I remember going into the hospital for a friend who was he had a thing happen, and he was hooked up to a bunch of machines, and I walked in, and he had a big beard, and I walked in, and I was just there. That's really all you can do it sometimes, is just be there. And so I walked in, and I said his name. I said, "Hey man," and his wife was sitting there, and I said, "Oh man, they shaved your beard off to put the ventilator in. I had no idea how much ugly that thing was covering up." We think your beard was covering up a whole bunch of ugly. That was a joke, obviously. And he got to laughing, like coughing, which I think was a part of laughter. He started coughing, and like his heart rate started going up. I was like, "Oh man, I've made a mistake here." But
I was kidding. You're very handsome.
You're very handsome. It's a joke. No, but I think it's important to speak to the person directly with dignity and maintain dignity. We need to understand that death is a part of life, and it can happen with dignity. You don't have to use a syringe in order for it to happen with dignity, or you don't have to use a hypoxic chamber or whatever. That's one of the things that frankly irritates me a little bit. I made a big video on Smarter Every Day about hypoxia, about the lack of oxygen to the brain. And every once in a while, I'll see that video be used as an argument for a way.
Oh.
I see that pop up, and I don't like it. I think people have dignity. I guess last thing I want to say, Matt, is life is precious.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's difficult, even when it's painful, even when it's hard, there are people that love you at all times, and it's important to stay in the fight.
Yeah, and there are people you haven't met yet, and there are circumstances you haven't experienced yet, and life is huge, and the world is huge, and it can be reimagined. If you hate the way it's going right now, and that is a place that we can find ourselves in, there are other versions that are available. There are things you can strike out and do, and there's great beauty in the adventure and the risk of rewriting the story, of reimagining the story. Life is rich. Sometimes when a chapter in life has come to an end, but you don't know what the next chapter is, that can be one of those places where there's a real vulnerability to getting into just hurting a lot and feeling like you hurt all the time. And yet, there's a lot of adventure in figuring out what the next chapter is.
Everything you just said, I'm trying to think of the internet counterpoint to that. But yeah, what if it's like this? And what I will say is I have one particular family member that is in a very, very, very difficult, almost unimaginable situation. And that individual uplifts my spirit every time I go interact with them and talk to them. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Stay in the fight. Well, worst episode ever. Thank you for entertaining
No,
that.
by an order of magnitude, this episode is hot crap. Great job, dude. Thank you. And I'm not mad at you because you didn't tell me. That was dumb for me to even say that.
You are a little bit. I know.
No, I'm not. No, that's the wrong way. I said that stupid. I'm not offended. I'm not mad. It's just
Just disappointed?
No, I'm frustrated with myself for getting busy and locking myself in a shed and kind of thinking that, well, I can just check out from the world for a little while and I'll come back. Some really important stuff happened in the middle of all of that. And I'm conflicted because you went through a really difficult thing and I was not attentive, and
I had all the support I needed.
Picture the event and it's heavy. I'm sorry.
No, I had all the support I needed in the moment, and I thought this would be a very interesting conversation, and I wanted to save it for you. I did want to bring the third chair in on this because I don't know. The emotions were very, very real and very, very raw, and just a peek behind the curtain, and I cried a lot. And in the history of this podcast, you were on record being the crier between the two of us, and I just wanted to get some of my tears in there. So There you go.
Good, you got a ways to go to catch up.
Yeah, I know. Little girl's running. Yeah, I just have a little girl running in the background.
That works. It still works on me, man. I don't know what my problem is.
Thank you for sharing this with me, and I would like to keep tabs on the situation throughout the world. I want to understand more about this, and I'm gonna try to read up on it and learn a little bit about it. So,
can we agree that Buckshot was the best dog
ever? Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for...
Buckshot was the best dog.
Thank you for acknowledging that. For Tara, I think she would say that Summer was the best dog and Buckshot was the best dog. And I also agree that Summer and Buckshot were the best dog.
Maya might be the best dog.
Maya might actually be the best dog. Maya's great, dude.
That's great. Yeah. May she teach her ways to young Freya.